I'm James the Color Guy, and today we're focusing on a Benjamin Moore color palette that I put together centered around Mount Rainier Gray. A beautiful, sleek, cool-leaning gray that has a lot to it. I'm gonna get into this color, get into all the details regarding it, and then finally give you a color palette that includes 2 trim color options and 3 wall color pairings that go really, really well with it. Welcome to the paint people, welcome to Color Quickie, welcome to my palette and review on Mount Rainier Gray. So to start things off, this is a mid-tone paint color that is on the lighter side of things. And we know that because Benjamin Moore, like most paint companies, tells us the LRV, or the light reflectance value. This is a very important number to be aware of because essentially it is the percentage of light that the color reflects. So in this case, we got a color that has around a 59 LRV, and that means it's decently bright, but not so light and pale that you won't notice any coloration to it. And also not so dark that it's going to feel like a slate gray or anything like that. It sits in a very, very nice position as a paint color, and I think that's why it's grown so popular over the years. Most recently, we've also seen a lot of these blue colors flooding the color trends palettes and all the major paint companies basically. And this color sits in that zone as well, although this is a muted blue. Dare I say, it's not even a blue. It's a gray that just has a pretty noticeable icy blue undertone. It is a fairly desaturated color, which means it is fairly neutral. But that being said, I do find these cooler leaning grays to feel even more cool and blue in person, especially in houses that are in north facing exposures or they have a lot of that cooler lighting happening. The only real way to know how this color is going to behave in your home is to simply test it out. So before you get a big can of paint, get a very small can, a little tester pot, and then either test it on a piece of card or on the actual wall that you're planning to use it in. You're going to thank yourself. And probably me. So in terms of use cases, this is a color you can really use in a lot of different circumstances. Because of the fact that it has that roughly 60 LRV, it makes it nice in terms of not feeling too light or too dark. It has a decent amount of saturation. It's muted, which makes it fairly versatile. Although I do find lately more people are going to gravitate towards the warmer neutrals as their kind of default color, like the anchoring color in a whole color palette. But if you are someone that appreciates these more sleek, cool leaning colors, then this could absolutely be a main color for your palette. It could be the hallway color, kind of a living area color, whatever you want it to be. For everyone else, excellent secondary color. So even if you wanted some warmer colors to sort of dominate the space and then you want to sprinkle in some Mount Rainier Gray, it's awesome for that as well. So bathrooms, bedrooms, a dining room, even the kitchen, totally could work. I can even see it being a decent kitchen cabinet color. Not something you would normally think of, like a cool sort of bluey gray, but totally could work, especially with nice stainless steel appliances. It'll look good. All right, so let's get into the color palette portion. So like I said earlier, we have 2 options for your trim. So all your baseboards and your woodwork and your frames. One that is an off-white, and that is Ice Mist, which is one of the popular Benjamin Moore cooler whites. There's a ton of warmer leaning ones that are really popular, but I wanted to stick with the cooler side of things, although Ice Mist isn't overly blue either. So although I find Ice Mist to have a pretty clear blue undertone, but because it's so bright and pastel, it has like an 88 LRV, that makes it extremely bright. So it'll be a very subtle dose of coolness that will just coordinate perfectly with Mount Rainier Gray, especially if you're using the white on the trim and that bluey gray on the walls. It'd be great. And then with the other colors in this palette, which we'll get to in a second, it also works great too. It's bright and stark enough that it'll really pop. Now for a dark trim color option, I went with Englewood Cliffs. Now this is one that was selected because, yeah, it is a bluey kind of gray, but not necessarily in the same way that Mount Rainier Gray is. This one almost feels like a stone, kind of stormy gray, maybe a dash of a green undertone happening, but more so it's about the blue here. So it's not exactly the same undertones. It's not an identical monochromatic wall and trim pairing. This one does feel slightly adjacent, but definitely within the same family. So it'll look good. Of course it'll look good. I picked it. At least I think it looks good. It's just my opinion. All right, so trim colors are done. Let's talk about some of the actual wall color pairings. These are other options you can use in different rooms in your home or even within the same space. Albescent would be my first choice, which is a lighter color compared to Mount Rainier Gray, and it also has a very clear warmth to it. It's almost a combination of a yellow creaminess and a little bit of orange to give it a peachy quality to it. Very complementary to the blue color that we talked about at the top of the video, but it just is giving you another completely different feel, completely different vibe. Because that's the key. Different rooms, you might have different feels that you're going for. Maybe you want to feel a little more lively. Albescent's great for that, while still being fairly passive overall. And then Mount Rainier Gray, also pretty passive and neutral, but a little more cool and sleek, chill. The next color we're talking about is quite a bit darker and even more adjacent, I would say, for a Mount Rainier Gray. This one is called Intrigue. And Benjamin Moore describes it as being a gray with green undertones. I look at it like the opposite. It is a green with a grayed out quality to it. Maybe even a bit shaded, I would say. It has a lovely softness to it, although you can really notice that green quite prominently, especially compared to the other colors in this palette. So it'll really stand out on its own. It also has an LRV 24.43. Okay, so that's pretty deep, I would say. It's a lot darker than I thought when I visually looked at it, but it's still light enough that you don't need to think of this as an accent wall only color. It has enough life to it that with the proper lighting, it can be a great wall color for an entire room, not just one panel. I also kind of like what they did in this image where they actually continued it onto the trim. I enjoy doing that with my darker colors in general, just because it sort of gives it a more streamlined look. Not a cheap landlord look, as some of you guys like to make fun of me for. The third color pairing, though, is the one that really stands out from the rest. It is a type of color that I really enjoy. I don't get to use it too often, but it is beautiful. This color specifically is called Love Affair. I don't know if you can tell from this image, but it has this beautiful combination of kind of a burgundy red, a little bit of brown, maybe a touch of purple as well. So it has some complexity to it. It almost has this red wine kind of aesthetic to it. And it has a 13-ish LRV. So it's definitely the darkest color out of these pairings, but it has such a beautiful richness to it. So any room that you really want to feel special, you want to stand out a little bit, dining room would be great for this. This is the color for that purpose. You have some decently neutral choices in this palette of varying color temperatures. And then you have this one for just that wow factor. Still not insanely vibrant either. Like it still has a toned down feel to it. So it does fit with all the rest of the colors, which are right here on the screen. Here's the palette all together. Please let me know what you think. I love your feedback. And if you want to check out even more content from us, we do have a Patreon, link in the description down below. You get exclusive content every single Sunday that you can only find on there. And if you're a Prime member, you get your own personalized mini color quickie palette from me every quarter. So check it out if you're interested. And if you want to see more videos on YouTube, here's one right over here.